Germany. This is where all AMGs are developed and engineered and the V8 engines are created. Now you can see behind me the AMG GT R, which in a future video I'm going to be running over the spec that I have ordered for my car. So stay tuned for that to follow, because today we're firstly going to be taking a look around the factory. Then later on I'm going to be taking out a C63S for a drive. I've not driven the new C63, but this video is going to be all about exploring this wonderful, wonderful facility. We'll pop into the showroom, have a look at the cars, talk a little bit about where this has all come from or where it's going, and then we're going to check out some of the engines as well later on. So I'm quite excited because this is literally where my car's engine is going to be built, where my car has been developed, and it's basically part of an awesome storyline. So I'm looking forward to see what the day has in store. The GTR is heading off for the moment. Doesn't it look good on the move though? Right, so let's head indoors. We are immediately greeted by a statement of intent in the form of the 6-litre Biturbo V12 from the S65 limousine that is lurking behind. But I want to swing the camera around straight away to get started with what we have on this side, the AMG GTS, and in particular an Edition 1 version of the car. But behind this, we've got the AMG GT3 car. This has been a very successful race car. Came first, second and third, dominating the podium at the last running of the Nürburgring 24-hour race. But this is all part of the customer racing program, which started with the SLS. The SLS GT3, the SLS itself being the first sort of road car that AMG had developed on their own, which has now become the AMG GT itself. But they've also got the GT4 car coming and running all of that from this facility. But that thing looks like a monster, and the GTR is the sort of closest road-going thing you can get to this car. It's heavily based upon this car with sort of track focus, race-inspired features. But there's a little bit of an ironing board on the back there, that wing. Everything carbon fibre, of course. But the GT, with the 4-litre Biturbo V8, is really what AMG can create if allowed to go off and make a perfect car for GT and for the road. This was the product, and the GTR has taken that even further in terms of the track side. But this is really a very, very significant year for AMG. This is actually the 50th anniversary, so it's a year we're expecting to see some fairly exciting products on the way as well. But we're going to explore now, go off and have a look around. As we walk past the wall of one man, one engine, each individual responsible for the engine complete build process, and then you get the plaque on the engine bay itself. And this is where it happens. So we're going to take a look around the build process of the M177 engine. That's the 4-litre Biturbo V8 that you find in the C63 and the E63 as well. And in particular in the E63S, 612 horsepower, which is enough to get the car in a distance term to 100 kilometers an hour in 47 meters of driving. That is not very far. In fact, in 82 meters, so another 35, it gets back to standstill. So the E63S can get from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour and back to standing still in 82 meters, less than a 100 meter sprint. So we're starting here then. These engines around me are the engines that are currently not on shift. So there are 2 shifts, and between shifts they get stored over here. Each engine builder has his own trolley. So these trolleys have all come out of various different stages, and the entire factory is over here behind that we're going to go exploring shortly. But you can see that they'll all be at slightly different stages of build. If we have a sneak under the covers, as obviously they've come out from the different places on the line. But quite literally, the trolleys belong to a single individual engine builder who is responsible for that engine throughout all of the stages of the build process. This room is, as I mentioned, the C63 and E63, but there is also another room where the GT engines are made, but it's the V8 engines that are built here, so the engines for the GT, the GTS, the GTC, and now the GTR as well. But it literally is one man, one engine, all the way through, and there is actually a strong reason for that, and it comes from motorsport. In racing, you have responsibilities. A person is assigned to a specific task. And obviously in this case, it means that that person has worked on that engine throughout. They know everything about it. They've been all the way through with it, from literally picking up the block at the beginning, as we're going to see in a moment, to the completed engine heading out with their plaque and their name on it. Their responsibility for the running of that engine. So let's head over to the start and see where this begins. We're right at the very beginning then, and just at this moment we have a C63 engine that has been started. So this is the block that's been taken out of where it's basically arrived here, gets installed onto the technician's trolley, and that is now going to head all the way around, secured in place on that very trolley. And there's actually a slight difference. The E63s are on the left here and the C63s are on the right. And basically when they head over and start going up the line, the C63s take the inside loop around the horseshoe and the E63s take the outside loop. Now we can't actually go into the line itself, obviously for safety equipment and the like, but basically this is going to go from this into a fully built engine. It takes about 3 to 4 hours for it all to be done, but this is where it becomes the responsibility of the engineer who's going to be working on it. Hence the sort of initial scan to just ensure everything is well, that it's arrived here as it should be, before continuing along and sort of accepting and taking full responsibility. But the equipment's all set up, obviously, to make this whole process significantly easier. It's not normal you get to see an engine this close and personal than what they look like. So there's not too much difference between the E's and the C's. At this stage, they have different components that get added on to them in the end, because ultimately you're going to have 510 horsepower to the 612. Different intercoolers, different electrical components, different parts all the way through them that make that. But these are all wet sumped engines built here. And then the other unit are the dry sumped engines that are going to go into the GT. The trolley arrives in the line. So it's going to progress down. Everybody's obviously trained for every task, but you have the whole sort of series of workstations where all the components can be found ready and prepared to go straight in. And obviously it works very much in sync, that the training is set up so that everybody sort of moves on more or less together to get the engines all the way through, where we'll go rejoin them at the next sort of stop point up towards the other end. Jump ahead a little bit, and the engines have come up the line. We're at the end of the horseshoe, and this is an interesting stage because we have an engine here that is effectively sort of half built. This is where they start to undergo a few rounds of testing. That engine will go through this machine above that will check the timing, check that everything's completely perfect, because obviously if there are going to be any concerns, you want to know about them as soon as possible to rectify everything at the earliest possible stage. But that will then continue with the same engine builder onwards through and around the second half of the horseshoe, through some more testing up above here, and then with a few more components being added still, with the left side and the right side for the C63 and E63 respectively. This is quite literally the end of the line then, so the engine builder has brought their engine all the way around to the start-finish straight, and as it completes here, it is literally a finished engine. So working backwards, came all the way from the start over in that corner over there to this stage where it gets some oil, gets the final checks and preparation before it will go off for engine testing. It's had the name badge attached to it. Obviously it can't go right there. It can't go onto the engine cover because that goes on in the final assembly line when the car is being built. But that will go off for testing, and the worker will then move on to start off again from the other side with a new engine. We've ventured upstairs to where the very bespoke engines are built, and I'm joined by a fairly sort of legend in this industry, Michael Kubler, who builds the Pagani engines and the GT3 engines.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Well, you too. I'm sure many of my followers are following you,
yes,
especially through the build of Pagani engines on social media. But this is a nearly complete GT3 engine.
Yes. And you are able to work on it.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a button here. Press the button until the green light is coming.
On this button?
Yes. And you go. So. And now.
Okay. Perfect.
Perfect. Very nice. So.
I've screwed a screw into an AMG GT3 race car engine.
Yes. Yes. One more special thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to take it, you are allowed.
Do you trust me?
Yes.
To put your badge on straight?
Yes.
Are you sure this is a good idea? Can I do it upside down?
Take it the right way, please.
Is it there before I press it down?
Perfect.
Now
Press it down, please. Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. By way of a little bit more explanation then for what happens up here, these two stations are for the more bespoke engines, so the AMG GT3 engines and the Pagani engines when they're in build here too. They're built on the spot, the two stations. The components are brought to the engines where they're being built, so the trolleys, for example, get taken away and swapped with trolleys with the components required for the new engines. They're highly built by one of two men who work up here. They're appointed to the job, they don't get to apply for it, they're selected out of an already pretty skilled set of technicians working here in the engine plant. They're built, so right here, although it's a manual process, there's also a lot of technology at play. You've got the computer systems which actually control and set the torque settings required for the individual machines here to work on the engine, and before ultimately it ends up with the plaque to represent the man who worked on it. So this is where pretty much, well, all Pagani engines have been through, many of them worked on by Mike. So quite awesome. Yes, this is basically the top end of engine building, as far as it can go. We've got some interesting cutaways here that I'm just going to quickly show you. Firstly, this is the pretty legendary 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8 from the C63, and that was the first engine that AMG actually built completely in-house. But these other two are examples of turbos. So what we're looking at here is an original turbo that runs on the six-cylinder bank of a V12. So it's biturbo because there are two equivalent turbos, one on each bank. And then here we have the new twin-scroll turbo. You'll find this on the A45 on the four-cylinder engine, or on the E63 with the twin-scroll V8, which is where it gets that extra power to get over 600 horsepower, and the GTR lags behind at 585. But the twin-scroll element, you can see, is where you've got the two sort of ventings here for airflow that come off the different banks, 1 and 4 on one side and 2 and 3 on the other side, allowing extra airflow to work more cleverly through the engine. So I don't know everything about it, but it's quite interesting to see the cutaways and see how this works in real sort of engine layout versus where technology was not all that long ago. After exploring the factory, we're back where we started, but this time lined up for my next item on the agenda today is the C63S sedan. I'm going to be taking that out for a drive as well, shooting a video, giving you some thoughts and feedback. So that is coming next. So stay tuned for that, as well, of course, as revealing the spec for my AMG GT R. So those videos are coming very, very soon after this one, but it's been pretty awesome taking a look around and getting to know a little bit more about what goes into an AMG car, the engine, the heart, the beating heart of the car. Engines that are so good and sound so amazing, as I'm going to find out in this car later on. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that tour around the factory, seeing where this engine actually started out, how it got made, and a little bit more. But like I said, more videos to come. So thank you very much, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.